safe and less, even versus less. Oh, that's a scary thought. Safe versus less. I mean, let's not go there, shall we? Um, a lot of the questions I get are often about which framework should we choose, which do you prefer, why do you like less over safe. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes, perhaps at least a high level, explaining some of my thought processes behind my preference for less, and perhaps why safe is so appealing to people. So safe is brilliant in the way that it presents a seemingly complete picture to people. You don't have to understand Agile necessarily in order to follow the instructions, which is brilliant. There's a clear certification model. You can send your people on training. They come back as experts. Jobs are good. Who wouldn't want some of that? A whole organization full of experts. And this very, arguably, if you choose to see it this way, a very detailed approach, which has a lot of great stuff in there and asks you to use this great stuff in certain ways. I mean, it looks brilliant. It looks complete. If I was running an organization and I didn't understand the benefits of the situational learning, of people figuring stuff out, of actually creating a growth mindset in an organization and just not following the process, then I would absolutely go for safe. And I think this is where it does a brilliant job. And I think when organizations succeed when using safe, it isn't because they've used the big picture or used it exactly as the recipe requested. It's when they've engaged their minds a little bit and they've embraced thinking around the problem and they have been able to tailor it down or make intelligent decisions about what's most useful for them. And I think this is one of the primary differences then between large scale Scrum and large scale Scrum huge and safe, is that less is purposefully incomplete. It leaves so much room for learning, situational learning. It leaves lots of space to enable informal networks to be developed, to allow teams to drive their own improvement about how they are creating the product based upon an organizational goal. It minimizes the number of roles that you have. And yes, this may then cause certain aggravation and leave you having to think about what you want to do and what's most useful given your context. But surely that's what Agile was all about. Agile wasn't about having a recipe, nor was it about thinking that you could avoid thinking. It was about looking at some principles and finding barely sufficient ways to create an organization, to create a product, to get frequent feedback. And this is where less excels, because less is incomplete. You will find that if you try and use less in an organization, you will have to add bits here and there. And that's a brilliant thing because you're encouraged to. You are asked to really think about what you're adding and ask yourself, is what we are adding going to be useful for us in the goals that we are trying to achieve? Will it make our people happier? Will it make our customers happier? And because it challenges our thinking in that way, what this means is we end up with an organization which is optimized at that point in time for what we're trying to achieve, not optimized for the avoidance of thinking and just following a recipe. Now, I am not going on record at saying that one is better than the other. I don't really care much for those types of comparisons. Many would argue that comparing less and safe just isn't conducive because you're comparing two different things. I get that argument and I agree with it to an extent, but I also believe that people are always going to compare them. So let's begin having real big open conversations about this. Now, there's a lot to be said for both. And ultimately, which is chosen depends upon you or your boss or your boss's boss. But the one thing that I think we all need to do is maybe not get hung up about which framework it is, but let's get hung up on thinking about things. Let's get hung up on figuring out which of these approaches is the most useful for us to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. Because then and only then will we make the right decisions which will really set us on the path that we deserve to be on. Thank you for listening.